Now, what I want to point out, this is a very upsetting article, because we elected a wonderful guy as governor, Paul LePage, as governor in early November. He's a self-made man, and with all of our principles. And when I say we, it's Tea Party people and, really traditional conservatives, rock-bound coast, which we don't have anymore. It's a flabby coast now. But these are the traditional Mainers who voted for Governor LePage. And we have great faith in him, but we're warning everybody. We hope that he's going to succeed in rebuffing the agenda, the people around him, some of which are getting their views from the Heritage Foundation and Brookings Institute, et cetera. I'm going to read a little bit of this article, if you don't mind, Alex. And what I want the people out there to be alert for is the same thing happening in their states, where they've elected people they thought were going to be very good, and probably were, until they were encircled by the enemy with the fancy, the fancy reports, the task force reports on how to save money.
And by the way, what's happening in Maine and New Jersey and everywhere else is the same deal. They bring in regional government. They say you're bankrupt. They cut all the basic funding.
Right.
But that will never pay anything off if we don't get rid of the private Federal Reserve. Well, that's the real debt black hole. So they're calling it conservative to slash veterans' health care.
Yes.
That has nothing to do with balancing the budget.
No.
It's the 1,500 trillion derivatives that has to be dealt with.
Yes. Well, I was just so taken aback by this, because for years I have been sending this particular quote to, it's out of my book, to all the media, and they refuse to print it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just read you this quote. It's on November 8th, 1975. This deals with regionalism, and it's in the Communist Daily World, their journal. And the article is by a fellow by the name of Zeitlin, a communist. And it's entitled Planning as Socialism's Trademark, in which he states the following. Cities in industrially advanced countries develop complex economic, social, and political interaction. In this process, major cities tend to consolidate neighboring smaller cities and settlements into metropolitan regions. Rationally, metropolitan regions should constitute governmental units having comprehensive planning and administrative powers within their boundaries. In our country, the United States, rival capitalist groups jealously guarding their special prerogatives have rigidly maintained the traditional boundaries. Folks, we've got to continue to rigidly maintain them, boundaries of states and counties, while national economic and social development has created metropolitan regions that overlap those boundaries. He goes on to say, we have no regional government and no comprehensive regional planning to speak of. Regional government and planning remain concepts our urban scholars and planners have long advocated in vain. In socialist countries, metropolitan regions enjoy metropolitan regional government and comprehensive planning. Of the many regions on the vast tyranny of the Soviet Union, the Moscow region commands special attention, for it has been since the revolution the country's economic and political center.
And that's what Agenda 21 is, and they all admit it, and they're getting rid of the sheriff's departments all over the country. They've got unelected regional. We now have the 10 FEMA regions with 10 governor council under Homeland Security openly. I mean, and you're right, Charlotte, they are now moving at warp speed ahead of the engineered financial collapse.
Let me read this last thing he says, which is laughable. He says, 1975, this communist writer, the economic and functional efficiencies and the social benefits that comprehensive national, regional, and city planning make possible in socialist society explain the Soviet Union's enormous and rapid economic and social progress. End quote. Okay, look, folks, I have not been able to get this published in the media ever since I put it into a letter in 1975. This is regional government. This is what's going in right now. Now, in Maine, I knew that this was going to happen, But sometimes you just have to let it happen. I'm so happy I'm on with you, Alex, right now. I want all of your listeners to understand that this is the plan to take us down into a communist form of government with a planned economy. This is the government section, the government business section, the merger of government and business, regional government. The other section is education with a school to work. They go together.
And that's the big secret, is that communism, collectivism, has been created on record by the mega banks. They want to get rid of their competition and suck everything offshore where they're above the law. This is economic war. We are under full-bore attack right now.
Oh, yeah, and really we are. And it's all happening. I honestly think it's happening mostly the last 2 weeks, because the DiLorenzo education plan, which the kids are going to graduate at 14 or 21, that you ask yourself how good an education that could be. It's that way because it's school to work, okay? That plus, and that comes out of Europe. We have an Office of Economic Cooperation and Development plan. These links are in that article, Death of Free Will. You have to click on it. The 4 links are vital for people.
Absolutely. Stay there, Charlotte. The bankers are taking over right now. Charlotte Iserbyt in the Foreign Service, number 2, at the Department of Education, the head of policy. This is not a conspiracy theory. And she graciously has put her entire book free online. And we'll tell you how to check that out. She sold out of hard copies, so it's out of print now. Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. But if you just type into the search engine, The Deliberate Dumbing Down, you'll see the PDF of it everywhere. She's written for us The Death of Free Will, Part 1. It's a lengthy, full paper with graphics and documents and exhibits. And we've just posted a fraction of it at Infowars.com. And then below we have the PDF to the entire new paper that she's written. And this isn't a game. Look, the freedom's over. The party's over. We're fighting real criminal takeover that's scientific. And I know you know that as listeners, but we better shake the brain dead out of their stupor. Charlotte, we've only got a few minutes left. You've already graciously been interviewed for 2 hours on video by my crew. We'll be getting that on prisonplanet.tv in the new year for the viewers there, and then to the whole world after that point. And then in an upcoming film, we're going to condense all these interviews down. But I'm going to put on screen again a screenshot of the PDF, The Death of Free Will, Part 1, brand new, just put out last week, exclusively at Infowars.com. And just God bless you for your work. But in closing, I guess you're saying the solution is being aware of this brazen takeover and not letting them bring in regional government.
Well, I am, Alex. What I want to say is what we're looking at now is the merger of the United States and the Soviet Union. Stop thinking in terms of the Soviet Union being dead. Soviet Union means all the socialist countries in the world that are communist. And this is the merger that Norman Dodd was told by the head of the Ford Foundation had to be carried out. And he
this is all on record. And I had members. I mean, in fact, I'm going to hold you over a little bit to finish because I'm going to interrupt now and add this. Folks, she's not just making this up. Everything is in her book, and I've already talked to other historians and folks that were involved in those Senate and House committees where they openly said they were going to merge us, and now I've talked to members of the European Union Parliament, and in their own words, they call it the new Soviet, and it's just, it's incredible. Go ahead.
Well, yes. I mean, they've got to know, I knew this would eventually happen, but this is the merger that Gaither told Dodd. He said, we get our instructions from the White House, and those instructions are to bring about a merger, use our money to change America so we'll be comfortably merged with the Soviet Union. Now, it's not Soviet Union, with the rest of the communist countries in this world and socialist countries. But they had to get the regional system in first. It's going in here. Hopefully we can get our governor.
No, that's the threat fusion centers.
It's a regional system. Now, what I want people to do is, because I can't read this whole article, Google Bangor Daily News. And the article title is Report Calls for Reshaping Augusta. Report calls for reshaping Augusta. That's the state capital. Google that. And what you say, just substitute your state capital's name. That's what's happening in every single state. The regionalization, the change, the switch. We've had two tracks, the Constitution and regional government for many years. Now the total switch of the tracks has been made. So this is communism. And the schools are going to be doing it through the reinventing education thing. That's the Pavlov method that denies free will or God. So this is it, folks. I'm sorry to have to. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, Charlotte,
I hope I'm wrong. I tell you what.
You're not wrong, Charlotte. We have all the documents.
If I'm wrong, I will give everybody $100 who's listening.
I don't think you have that much money. I know you might have a lot, but...
I don't have much money, but I know that I'm not wrong.
But, Charlotte, we don't even need to know if you're wrong or right. They admit the threat fusion centers, the 10 governors, where they ignore the other states, and Obama appoints 10 governors under FEMA. I mean, this is all happening. They admit this is going on. I mean, it's all, but they're accelerating their program right now. What do you think of the TSA and the telescreens with Homeland Security announcements going on the street corners, the shopping malls?
I know. Alex, it's just awful. And let me say right now, I want to thank you and all your people down there in Austin and these wonderful guys who've been with me this morning. As long as we have people like this, and I think C.S. Lewis would agree, you know, as long as all of us believe in what is right, even if everything that's wrong happens, it's not the end, because good will always prevail. Ultimately, it will. But that doesn't mean that these Americans can continue to sit on their dust, as they have been doing. Maybe they'll all jump on board now and try to help get out of this mess. You got to work with your public school teachers, the ones that are still left. And by the way, you'll be surprised. They're going to agree with you when you tell them that you don't like this charter school and school-to-work agenda, and you don't like merit pay. You're going to get a lot of teachers on your side.
Charlotte,
they're the only ones to go to, because the conservatives are the major part of the problem.
Okay, we got to go to break. I'm going to come back for a few more minutes and explain this paradigm, what's happening here. We'll be right back on the other side, briefly.
Crashing through the lies and disinformation. It's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
All right, Charlotte, finishing up briefly, and we appreciate your time. It's not that we support even having this government-run education. I mean, the feds came in, meddled with their funding in the last 100 years on record, changed it from classical education. We were the #1 test scores in the world. By the 50s, it began to drop from #1 to now, not just behind the industrialized world, but many third world nations. You know, those numbers are legendary now. Same thing is now happening in Europe. It's not that education doesn't have big problems. It's that the globalists engineer this in phases. They admit it. I mean, and they have brought in this failed system. Now their next solution is to completely take it over and corporatize it and accelerate school to work, where the government decides what you can do, what you can be, and where they spend even more time indoctrinating you in school with how to be a good brown shirt and not how to learn. Charlotte, explain it to them.
Well, I will. Actually, you have to realize they're going to use charter schools. And folks, watch out. I'm going to read a page from this Bangor Daily News article. LePage supports unfortunately, he doesn't know this, I guess, supports the creation of charter schools. And so does this horrible regional government report. The schools would have freedom to innovate that's lacking in public schools. Of course they will, because they don't have any school boards to tell them what not to or what to do. But Envision Maine, that's the name of it. You better watch out for that one. Maybe that's what we're going to call it, Envision Georgia, Envision everywhere.